Characters have disappeared without a trace, certain scenes set up big revelations and were never revisited, and seemingly obvious connections were never really explored in spite of how they were set up in this galaxy far, far away. Yes, there are a lot of moving pieces in the Star Wars machine, but surely if you are going to the effort of beginning a story, you should make sure you see it through to the end, right? So with that in mind, I'm Padawan Gareth here from What Culture Star Wars, and here are 10 Star Wars subplots that went literally nowhere. Number 10, The Knights of Ren. After the general disappointment that was the Star Wars prequel trilogy, Star Wars fans were buzzing with anticipation for The Force Awakens in 2015. With a brand new trilogy full of new characters, planets, and storylines, there was a lot to be excited about. Though not at the top of that particular list, the Knights of Ren were one of the more mysterious aspects to this new trilogy. And as with Kylo Ren himself, there was still intrigue and a certain level of anticipation surrounding them. In reality, however, the Knights of Ren were about as inconsequential as Star Wars characters can get. And that is saying something. They were given next to no backstory on screen, other than that they followed Kylo Ren, and even that was called into question, to be honest. When Kylo turned on the First Order, the Knights fought against him. So clearly it wasn't their namesake that they were loyal to. In all honesty, they could have easily been replaced with nameless First Order stormtroopers, rather than building expectations for something that never truly mattered. Number 9, Luke's broken lightsaber. Lightsabers are iconic in the world of Star Wars. From the green and blue of the Jedi and the blood red of the Sith, to the more specialist double saber of Darth Maul, Mace Windu's unique purple lightsaber, and the Mandalorian darksaber. Typically, a Jedi must select their personal kyber crystal during the gathering. There is a deep connection not only to the owner of the lightsaber, but to, the fans as well. And this is why audiences were so damn pissed off when Luke Skywalker nonchalantly threw his away at the beginning of The Last Jedi. Later in the movie, the saber was the subject of something of a force-powered tug-of-war between Kylo Ren and Rey. There were no winners, however, as the weapon split in half under the weight of the Force Dyad's power. This seemed like it should have and would have been a big moment in the movie, as Rey in this moment essentially became a Jedi in training with nothing to train with. Luckily for her though, by the start of The Rise of Skywalker with absolutely zero explanation, Luke's lightsaber was working perfectly fine, with no apparent consequences or inconvenience for Rey. Oh, that's nice for her. Number 8, ENFYS Nest Rebellion. A lot of Solo: A Star Wars Story's narrative revolved around coaxium. The hyperfuel was insanely valuable, with Dryden Voss and by extension Tobias Beckett and Han Solo himself scouring the galaxy to acquire it. At the same time, they were pursued by ENFYS Nest, another interested party. The difference was that while Voss wanted it for his own gains, ENFYS wanted to use it to make a positive change in the universe, to start something of a rebellion of her own against the Empire. At the movie's conclusion, Han Solo willingly gave the coaxium over to his rival over it all film, citing that she would actually do something good with it. Based on where these events are placed in the Star Wars timeline, you'd be forgiven for thinking this could feed directly into the rebellion against the Empire. Instead, audiences have never got to see exactly what ENFYS did with the coaxium, how she planned on helping those oppressed across the galaxy, and how she stood up to the Empire. Rather, she just vanished into Star Wars obscurity. These details were ultimately revealed in the novelization of Solo: A Star Wars Story, but few enough people watched the actual movie, even less would have read the book. This needed to happen on screen, surely. Number 7, Finn and Rose's kiss. Star Wars fans essentially revolted after The Last Jedi, and one character that caught a particularly hefty amount of unjust hate was Rose Tico. So much so that J.J. Abrams bizarrely opted to all but erase her from the Resistance in The Rise of Skywalker, allowing the character just 76 seconds of screen time. Ouch. She was given a flimsy excuse to keep her from going with Finn, Rey, and Poe to find the Sith Wayfinder, instead staying at base and off-screen as much as possible. This was just one of the many examples of disconnect between the movies of the sequel trilogy. Throughout The Last Jedi, Rose saw a lot of character development after the death of her sister, and she had a huge impact on the Battle of Crate. Instead of letting Finn kill himself in an attempt to take down Kylo Ren, she nearly killed both of them in an attempt to save him. One of the most painful moments of Star Wars dialogue followed, about saving what they love, alongside a kiss between Finn and Rose. However, with the latter's role in the franchise chopped down to essentially nothing for the finale of the Skywalker saga, there was no further romance between the two characters. There was no further anything for Rose, in truth. Number 6, An Uprising on Kessel. When ENFYS stole the precious coaxium from Tobias Beckett and his crew, they found themselves heading to KESSEL to steal the hyperfuel in its incredibly dangerous and volatile raw form. It was a dangerous mission, but that didn't mean there wasn't time to help out the spice miners before they left. KESSEL was run by the Pike Syndicate, a powerful criminal enterprise that ran spice throughout the galaxy. They had tangled with the Jedi previously, and had given Dryden Voss enough reason to want to avoid a war with them. Aside from actually running the spice, the Pikes used slaves to mine this stuff out of KESSEL, something that Han's crew took exception to. The group inadvertently, at least to begin with, sparked an uprising on KESSEL that seemed to see the slaves rise up and free themselves from their shackles. However, the first episode of Star Wars Rebels, set well after Solo on the Star Wars timeline, confirmed that there were still slaves being sent to KESSEL to work the spice mines. It turned out that the entire rebellion sequence on KESSEL was somewhat pointless then, as nothing really changed moving forward. Bummer. Number 5. Finn's Force Sensitivity. When audiences were introduced to Finn in The Force Awakens, he was simply a stormtrooper for the First Order. With the greatest respect, there was nothing particularly special about him. He was just someone who had been conscripted when he was a child, and that was kind of the point. Fast forward to the end of the movie, and he has a lightsaber in his hand and is crossing blades with Kylo Ren. The former Ben Solo ultimately defeated him, but Finn certainly held his own. Simply put, this shouldn't have been possible. Kylo was supposed to have raw power the likes of which neither Luke Skywalker nor Supreme Leader Snoke had ever seen before. This shouldn't have even been a competition, and yet Finn gave him a proper fight. The only explanation is that the former FN-2187 was Force sensitive. Add this to the fact that he seemed to feel Rey from across the galaxy in The Rise of Skywalker, and it's impossible to deny. The only problem is that absolutely nothing was done with it. It was never officially confirmed on screen, and Finn's story has seemingly ended with absolutely no closure on the issue. Marvelous! Number 4. Finn's confession to Rey. Arguably, the relationship struck up between Rey and Finn in the sequel trilogy was stronger than any other between episodes 7 to 9. There was an immediate initial connection, and they were like brother and sister throughout the subsequent 2 movies. During the Rise of Skywalker on Pasaana, they were trapped in quicksand with Poe, C-3PO, and Chewie, and appeared to be sinking to their deaths. In the panic to say something before it was too late, Finn told Rey that there was something he never told her. Of course, they all survived the fall into the tunnels beneath the planet's surface, but when Rey asked what he was gonna say, he went a bit quiet. It seemed that this was because Poe was there, but there was never another moment of privacy for him to confess whatever it was he was gonna confess. Amongst fan theories that he was gonna tell Rey of his love for her, J.J. Abrams reportedly confirmed that Finn was in fact going to tell Rey about his Force sensitivity. This didn't actually happen though, and the moment in the movie was just left as a dangling thread by the time the credits rolled. Number 3. Lando's relationship with Janna. There is a running thread throughout all of Star Wars of family. Vin Diesel will be proud. In any instance of a character with a slightly mysterious or unexplored past, the general thought is that they must be related to someone important. Just look at Rey. Fans were so certain that she was the daughter of a key character that they essentially rejected the canon of her parents being nobodies. And that worked out really well, didn't it? At the end of The Rise of Skywalker, there was also a moment that seemed to suggest the reveal of yet another father-daughter relationship. This was between Lando Calrissian and Janna. The two sat talking after the Battle of Exegol, with Lando suggesting that they find out who she is together. In The Rise of Skywalker, the visual dictionary, it was revealed that Lando had a daughter taken in her youth, strongly suggesting that Janna was that daughter. But again, in the confines of the movie, this went absolutely nowhere. Number 2. The search for Ezra Bridger. In the same way that Rogue One led straight into A New Hope, Star Wars Rebels set up the rebellion in more detail on the whole. The series showed how one small cell of rebels joined the larger rebellion under the leadership of General Leia and Mon Mothma. At the end of the series, the finale did a decent job of explaining where the main characters all went. With the exception of Ezra Bridger, the young Jedi flew into hyperspace with Grand Admiral Thrawn and was unheard of again. This would have been one thing, but the final scene actively set up the search for him. Both Sabine Wren and Ahsoka Tano came together to lead the effort to find Ezra, wherever he was in the universe. Absolutely nothing came of this, however. 5 real-time years and roughly 35 in-universe years later, Kanan's Padawan is still yet to show his face in the Star Wars universe again. With fans desperate to see a live-action version of Thrawn, and Ahsoka returning to screens in her own Disney Plus show, there is at least a very slim chance that Ezra's story could be picked up in the future though. Fingers crossed, eh? Number 1. QI'RA heading to Dathomir. Han Solo's mystery was one of the many reasons he was so beloved. Han Solo: A Star Wars Story didn't so much add to his lore, as it did give a backstory to every single sentence he ever said in the original trilogy. The majority of the characters in the movie either died, see Tobias Beckett and Dryden Voss, went on to play a big role in the original trilogy, Chewie and Lando, or seemingly just vanished. We've already covered ENFYS Nest, but what about QI'RA? There was no mention of her when Han was falling in love with Leia, so she had to be written out of his life. But surely there was a better way to do this than what ultimately happened. After Dryden Voss's death, QI'RA reported to Darth Maul as the head of Crimson Dawn, and was summoned to Dathomir. Darth Maul played a much larger role on Star Wars screens than just the movies, of course, playing important parts in both the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, but nowhere was QI'RA mentioned. She was summoned to Dathomir, somewhat confirming her villainous turn, and then nothing. So much for that then. And that is our list. Know of any other Star Wars subplots that went literally nowhere? Let us know all about them in the comments section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're down there. Also, if you like this kind of stuff, then please head on over to whatculture.com and find some more fantastic articles just like the one this video you're watching this very second is based on. I have been Force-sensitive Gareth here from What Culture Star Wars. May the Force be with you as always, and hopefully I'll see your pretty faces very, very soon. But in the meantime, just be good to yourself. Bye bye!